My name is Claire Reynolds, I'm 30 years old, and the day my husband told me he was leaving me for my best friend, I thought my life was over. Ethan stood across from me in our living room. Megan was standing beside him. My best friend, the woman who had held my hand when I got married, the woman I trusted with every secret. Ethan looked at me and said, "I love her." I stared at Megan. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Ethan added the words that hurt even more. "She understands me better than you ever did." I felt something inside me break, but what neither of them knew was that I had discovered their secret 3 weeks earlier. And I had been hiding something from them too, something that would completely change what happened next. Ethan and I had been married for 6 years. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but I thought we were happy. We had a comfortable home, stable jobs, and a small circle of close friends. Megan was the closest person outside my marriage. We had known each other since college. She came to my wedding. She was there when my father died. She knew about every argument Ethan and I ever had. Looking back, that was probably the problem. I gave her too much access to my life. About 6 months before everything fell apart, Megan started spending more time with Ethan. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She would come over when I was working late. Sometimes Ethan would drive her home. Sometimes they would text each other. Whenever I asked, Ethan said the same thing. "She's your best friend, Claire." I trusted him. Then one evening, I came home early. Megan's car was in our driveway. I walked inside. I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. When I entered, both of them became quiet. Megan immediately stood up. "Claire, you're home early." I smiled. "Apparently." Ethan looked uncomfortable. I noticed his phone lying on the counter. A message appeared on the screen. "I wish she would leave already." I didn't see the sender's name, but I knew. I picked up the phone. Ethan grabbed it from my hand. "Don't touch my phone." His reaction told me more than the message did. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't accuse them. Not yet. I would find the truth first. Over the next 3 weeks, I quietly paid attention. I noticed Ethan leaving the house at strange hours. I noticed Megan suddenly becoming distant whenever I entered a room. Then I found something that destroyed whatever doubt I had left. I was looking for an old tax document in Ethan's desk when I discovered a hotel receipt. 2 nights, 2 people. The name on the reservation was Ethan Reynolds. The second guest was Megan Parker. I sat on the floor holding that receipt. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call Megan. I wanted to call my mother. Instead, I put the receipt back, and I made another decision. I would not let them see me break, because something else had been happening in my life, something Ethan knew nothing about. For the past year, I had been building a small online design business. I had started it quietly because I wasn't sure it would work. At first, I had only 1 client, then 5, then 12. 3 months before discovering the affair, I had received an offer from a major company to purchase my business. The offer was worth $280,000. I hadn't accepted it yet. I was still negotiating. But there was another important detail. The business belonged entirely to me. Ethan had never invested in it. He had never helped build it. And I had kept the business completely separate from our joint finances. I hadn't told him about the offer because I wanted to surprise him after everything was finalized. Now, I was glad I hadn't. The confrontation came on a rainy Friday evening. Ethan asked me to sit down. Megan was there. I looked at both of them. "I think you know why I'm here," Ethan said. I nodded. He took a deep breath. "I've fallen in love with Megan." Megan finally looked at me. "I never wanted to hurt you." I almost laughed. "You've been sleeping with my husband." She started crying. Ethan looked angry. "Claire, this marriage has been over for a long time." "No," I looked directly at him. "You decided it was over after you found someone else." He didn't answer. Then he said, "I want a divorce." "Fine." Both of them looked surprised. Ethan clearly expected an argument. Megan expected tears. Neither got them. I stood up. "Take whatever you need from the house." Ethan frowned. "That's it?" I looked at him. "What else do you want?" He didn't know what to say. So I walked upstairs. I packed 1 suitcase. Then I left. I stayed at a hotel for 2 weeks. During that time, I finalized the sale of my business. The company paid me $280,000. I hired a lawyer. I separated my finances, and I found a beautiful apartment across town. I didn't tell Ethan anything. Not about the business. Not about the money, not about the apartment. I simply disappeared from his life. A month later, the divorce papers arrived. Ethan wanted half of everything. My lawyer reviewed our finances. Fortunately, my business had been established before the separation, and my records clearly showed that Ethan had never contributed to it. He tried to argue, but the documents were clear. Eventually, he accepted the settlement. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan called me. "I heard you sold your business." I stayed silent. "How much did you get?" I smiled. "Why do you care? Claire, we're still married until the divorce is final." "That's not your money." He became angry. "You kept this from me?" I laughed softly. "You kept an affair from me." There was silence. Then he said, "You've changed." I answered, "No, I finally stopped letting you decide what I was worth." 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Ethan married Megan. I didn't attend the wedding. I heard they moved into a new house. I heard they were happy. At least that's what everyone said. I focused on my new life. I traveled. I expanded my design work. I made new friends. And slowly, I learned how to trust myself again. Then, almost a year after the divorce, Ethan showed up at my apartment. I opened the door and froze. "What are you doing here?" He looked exhausted. "I need to talk to you." I almost closed the door. But something in his expression stopped me. He looked genuinely desperate. "What happened?" He swallowed. "Megan left." I didn't respond. "She took the money from our joint account." I raised an eyebrow. "How much?" "Almost everything." I felt no satisfaction, only disappointment. Ethan looked at me. "She said she never loved me." I stared at him. He continued. "She said she only wanted the life you had." That sentence made me understand something. Megan hadn't stolen Ethan because she loved him. She had stolen the life she thought belonged to me. Ethan looked down. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I remained silent. Then he said something I never expected. "I thought you would always be there." I shook my head. "You lost that right when you chose her." Ethan noticed the new apartment. The expensive furniture, the framed artwork, the peaceful life I had built. "How did you do all this?" I looked at him. "I rebuilt myself." He swallowed. "You really did well." "Yes." He looked uncomfortable. "Did you know about the business before we divorced?" "Yes." His eyes widened. "You knew?" "I knew everything." He stared at me. "Then why didn't you fight?" "Because I didn't want to spend the rest of my life fighting for someone who had already chosen to leave." He sat quietly. Then he asked, "Was there ever a chance for us?" I thought about it. "Maybe before you betrayed me." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." I believed that he was sorry, but being sorry doesn't undo betrayal. So I told him the truth. "I forgive you." He looked surprised. "But I don't want you back." After Ethan left, I stood by my window. For a moment, I remembered the woman I had been a year earlier. She had believed losing her husband meant losing everything. She had believed losing her best friend meant she had nobody. She had believed betrayal had destroyed her future. But she was wrong. Sometimes losing the wrong people is how you finally make room for the right life. Megan took my trust. Ethan took my heart for granted, but neither of them could take my future. Because while they were busy betraying me, I was quietly building something they couldn't touch. My business, my independence, my confidence, my life. And that was the secret Ethan discovered too late. He thought leaving me would leave me with nothing. Instead, it gave me the freedom to become everything I had been too afraid to become. I don't hate Ethan. I don't hate Megan. I simply don't need either of them anymore. And that's the most satisfying ending betrayal can have. Because revenge isn't always watching someone suffer. Sometimes revenge is waking up one morning and realizing you no longer care what happens to the people who broke your heart. I lost a husband. I lost a best friend. But I found myself. And in the end, that was worth far more than everything they took from me.